And for my next project, we are going to take one of these triangular shapes, these shadow boxes that you can get from Dollar Tree, and also a package of these, what am I talking about here? A package of this vase filler and then one of these candlestick holders. So take your shadow box outside, spray paint it red, my favorite color red, sunrise red that I'm using from Rust-Oleum. And then that candle holder that I was talking to you about as well, we are going to flip that upside down and we're going to spray paint it black. That is going to serve as the base of our kind of a tree that we're going to be doing here. So once everything is dry, I'm going to add a thin layer of hot glue down at the bottom. Kind of working really a little bit at a time is ideal because this glue does dry pretty quickly. So add a couple of your styrofoam vase filler balls in there, spread it out flat, and literally just start building layers until you have a completed filled shadow box, kind of like so. And if you need to go in and fill in any pieces with any of your filler that's left over, you certainly can do this. I did only just use the one bag. And then for the base itself, I am going to take that candle holder, I'm adding a little bit of glue to it, and boom, you've got a little decorative Christmas tree accent. For this one, it is sitting on my bar. But again, you could put this really anywhere you want it in your house. And for my next project, I'm going to take one of these square canvases from Dollar Tree. I'm also grabbing this Dollar Tree ornament that I really liked so much. And I'm also grabbing a package of shims that I picked up at Home Depot. You can get these in the wood department. They are about $1.50, I think. And as you can see from the shims, they look like they would be flat, but they're not. One side is going to be a little bit larger than the other, but that's okay. What we're going to do is we're actually going to be alternating these. And as you can see, they are the perfect size for my canvas. So I've got the larger end at one side, and now I'm alternating it, putting it large to small, large to small, large to small. And that does create kind of a, it's not a flat surface at all. But then if you go back in and do the opposite with your shims right over top of it, then you're going to have a flat surface. Now, if you didn't have shims and you wanted to use large popsicle sticks, for example, you certainly could do that. Now, I am just going to slide those off of the canvas. I did not glue those down just yet. And I'm taking some of my brown antiquing wax, and I think this one is from Waverly. And I'm just going to go over my canvas, and that's really just so you don't see any of that white canvas just kind of peeking through on this particular one. I will go back through later on, you'll see, and I'll end up using some black chalk paint to kind of go around the edges and the edges of the shim as well. But for this time being, you can just use this antiquing wax, kind of like I'm doing here. And you'll go back and forth with it until you get it to the color that you like. I kept mine kind of this lighter brown color, and I did like it. I was fine with it the way it turned out. And then once again, just kind of rubbing it in, going back and forth with the cloth. I'm just using an actual dish towel that I purchased at Dollar Tree. I always keep one on hand, and I just kind of use that anytime I'm going to be using any kind of an antiquing wax. And then once again, once you are done and happy with that, you can go ahead and take your heat drying tool or your heat gun and dry that off. And now we're going to start gluing our shims down. Now, in the same pattern that I did before, I'm going to start gluing those down. And then after I have that first layer completed and that canvas is completely covered, then I am going to go back over all of those shims and alternate them the other way. So hopefully that's making sense to you, because this essentially is going to be a flat piece of wood, or a somewhat flat piece of wood, versus the way that the shims kind of are high to low. It would not be very flat. So hopefully that's making sense. It's making sense to me anyway. And then as you can see, I've got now all of my shims glued down here, and they're nice and solid. And now what I'm going to do is take my antiquing wax once again, and I'm going to take that antiquing wax and I'm literally just going to go right over top of those shims, making sure that I get them the exact color that I need. I really do like working with the antique wax. For me, it's better than stain. It also cleans up a lot easier if you get some on your table or on your cutting mat or even on your hands. It is so easy to come off. You can use some regular soap. You can easily get this off. It's very similar to chalk paint. And again, with the antiquing wax, I'm going on fairly heavy and just kind of going back and forth. Those shims are kind of rougher pieces of wood, which is kind of nice because as you can see, it's really taking the stain and it's taking it very differently depending on the shim that is there. And I love that because this is going to look very old, very rustic, almost like a reclaimed wood. Now, while that is drying, I did take my reindeer outside and I spray painted it black. I did remove the kind of the embellishments that were around its neck, making it less Christmassy. And I'm just using this Rust-Oleum black. And then for the antler ring, I'm going to use a dark steel spray paint from Rust-Oleum. This is kind of going to be a very industrial, cool looking vibe. Okay, now that everything is drying outside, I've got my plaque here, my shim plaque, and this is where I mentioned earlier that I'm taking some of my black chalk paint and I'm just going to go around the edge of the canvas, and then you'll see that I did go ahead and just start doing it all the way around the edges of the shims. And the reason why I did this is because it kind of created like a really cool frame effect that I really did like a lot. This is going to go in my office area, which is kind of an industrial-ish vibe, and I really like the way that this looks. So once you're complete, you can see how cool it's going to look because it will have that dark kind of frame, if you will, around it. Now, for the actual antler ring itself, we're going to add some hot glue to the back of that, and then we're just going to glue it down in the center of our wood plaque, kind of like so. We're going to make sure that that's good and solid and stays there nice and dry before attempting to glue this guy on top of it. And then for that guy, I am going to just kind of lay him on top of there. And you'll see that there's this one little antler piece that sticks up. I did go ahead and take a pair of wire cutters and I just kind of clipped that. The antlers had good contact with the antler ring, but there was still this kind of space behind his head there. So I had this piece of scrap wood that was just this round circle. So I did go ahead and just paint that black with some chalk paint, and then I glued it to the back of his head and then glued it on top of the wood plaque itself. And once everything dried, it turned out really cool. This is the way it looks, and I love this. But what I also loved about this was that it's very easily you can turn this into something very Christmassy, very easy. You could hang it with ribbon. You could tie a piece of twine or a bow or anything around its neck, or you can just keep it like I've got it here. Very cool, very industrial looking. And for my next project, we're going to take one of these house shadow boxes. This toy soldier that I have here, this Nutcracker, came from Michael's. It was in a pack of 5 or 6. I bought them last year, and I think I paid around $8 for all of them. For the shadow box, this is one of those shadow box houses that sometimes people can find really easily. And then I also have this placemat that I thought kind of looked like Christmas trees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my shadow box, I'm going to line it up around the edge of that placemat there, and then I'm just going to trace around it. And I'm going to trace around it with my little fat pencil. I love these pencils. I think these are like pencils for kindergartners or for kids that are just learning how to write, but I love them. I did go ahead and pop the back of my house out. If you are really good at tracing and cutting down, you could certainly keep the back of your house on there. I am not that great at that, so I just popped it off. I did try this spray glue from Dollar Tree. It is not good. Don't bother. You'll see that I ended up later on using hot glue and going back in and fixing it. Now, for this toy soldier guy, I'm actually going to cover him in antiquing wax, and I did that there. And then I'm going to take my cloth and I'm just going to start rubbing it off because I want this to look like a really cool old wooden soldier. I love that against that red. Now you can see here where that spray glue, even after an hour, still hadn't dried enough to hold this down. So I am just going to take some hot glue and go all the way around all the edges of that. And then now that's cool. All right, for the house shell itself, I am taking some white paint. I've sped the camera up. Don't worry, I'm not painting it that fast. And I am just covering this in white. And I'm kind of purposely not doing a super even coat because I do want this to look just a little bit on the rustic side. I'm taking my heat gun once again and speeding up that drying process. By the way, that was an acrylic paint that I used. And then on my brush, I have just a tiny bit of antiquing wax. And I'm just going around the edges and trying to get some of those corners. And it's just to give this white paint a little bit of definition and to really tie in that toy soldier, or I keep calling it a toy soldier, that Nutcracker thing that I used. And once again, I'm just kind of going through, and then any of those heavy spots that I might have hit too much with that brush, I can just go in with my cloth and just blend those in, and it ends up looking really, really good. And I love the way that this turns out. I'm addicted to antiquing wax, clearly. Now, for the back of our house, that is the part that I did peel that back off. That's why it still looks kind of rough. That's okay though, because I am just going to glue this right back down to the back of that house, or that red house cutout, I guess is really what it is. And adding a fairly generous amount of hot glue along those edges. And then I love to put a lot of hot glue on, and then I use the heat from the tip to kind of spread that glue around. And then once I've lined everything up, I'm going to go ahead and press down and just squeeze that together and make sure that we've got good contact there. And please excuse my dirty fingers. Yes, I know I can use soap. I can wash them. I chose not to. For the toy soldier itself, I am just going to add some glue right to the base of that toy soldier, or that Nutcracker. I'm still calling it a toy soldier. And I'm going to glue it down to the center of my house. So it kind of looks like this here. I really think this is super cute. Very, very adorable. I'm going to let that dry really well. And then I added a little bit of an embellishment at the top there. I just added some green pieces and a very simple pine cone. Now, my next project is not from Dollar Tree. However, this is really, really affordable. I was able to pick up these cardboard letters from Amazon, and I am going to link them below. I think it was a pack of like 52 letters or something like that, and it was around 20 bucks. And I love these because they're 5 inches and they're pretty good size. Now, I had this leftover board that was from my pergola, so I'm going to use that too. I took these outside and I spray painted them my favorite color red, which is that sunrise. And then for that board that I had left over from the pergola build, I spray painted it white. Now I'm just going to glue my letters down to the board just with some hot glue, kind of like you see here. And then I am going to add a little bit of an embellishment at the top of the board. And then I added a simple bow that I just tied myself. And then to hang this, I did add some beads on the back of this, and just simply hot glued and used a little bit of duct tape on the back to be able to hold this up on the door. I love the way that this looks. All right, you guys, my next project I'm very excited about. You may remember these 4th of July signs. I have been saving these signs since 4th of July. I have 9 of them, I think. And actually, I probably have about 12 of them. Now, I bought these wood squares that are, I think, 6 inches at Amazon, or on Amazon. And then I have more of my wood cardboard letters that I told you about from the previous project. And I am going to be making a Christmas sign that I can hang on my mantle or use outside. And the way we're going to be doing it is kind of gluing these 3 things together like so. So I'm going to take my square pieces here and we're going to take them outside along with our letters outside, and we're going to use some spray paint to cover these. Now, you can also use craft paint or, chalk paint if you want to. I'm using my Sunrise Red paint from Rust-Oleum that I, again, love so, so much, and I'm just going to be painting all of my letters in that Christmas red. And then for my wood squares, I'm going to be spray painting those white. I'm using a Rust-Oleum flat white paint that I like a lot. I use this for almost every single project that incorporates some sort of white paint. For those corrugated metal signs, I am going to be using the twine that already comes on them, but I am just going to cut it in half. So I just kind of stacked them on top of each other here, and then I just cut them in half. So what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of our white squares and we are going to hot glue them on top of your pennants. Now, if you are planning on using this outside, I might recommend that you use like Shore Bond or even a super glue of some kind. E6000 Quick Hold would certainly work. I think mine's going to be inside, although I'll show you how it looks for both of them. So as you can see, through the magic of speed television or speed YouTube or whatever we're going to call this, I am gluing these down pretty fast. And before I start tying anything together, I am going to make sure that each one of those letters are nice and solid and everything is good and dry. So I am literally just taking each individual letter and having a little oopsie of glue there and scraping it off, and then going back through and getting all of these letters individually placed on their individual pennants. And then once everything is dry, I am going to start tying them together kind of like you see here. Now, if you wanted to get fancy with it or decorative with it, you could use some kind of a buffalo check ribbon or something else. I'm choosing just to use the twine, one, because I didn't have enough of that buffalo check ribbon. But again, I think that this kind of adds to that cool rustic kind of element, especially using the corrugated metal. Also, I don't know if you noticed or not, but every single one of my pennants was the exact same. They all say blue and welcome on the reverse side. So this is something that you could feasibly use when it becomes 4th of July time again. So as you can see, I'm just tying each one of those together and I'm kind of putting it in a little bit of a bow. And this is what it starts to look like when it's all coming together. Now, this is what it looks like on my fireplace that is not decorated for Christmas yet, but I think you get the idea. But look how cute it would be if I wanted to do it outside as well. This is what it looks like hanging from my brand new pergola. Again, super, super cute and very, very versatile. Project, you're going to need one of these paper cones from Michaels. You're also going to need a bunch of Jingle bells. Now, I picked up 7 or 8 packages, and you'll notice that in the packages that they sell at Dollar Tree, there's a 50-piece package and there's a 32-piece package. Depending on the size bells you want, you can go with either one. I actually ended up using a variety of sizes, so either one works. Also, I got my hot glue gun back because guess what? You're going to need a ton of hot glue for this particular project. So get your glue guns and glue sticks ready and let's start gluing. Now, if you wanted to pre-paint your cone, you certainly could. I chose not to because the kind of cardboard color is kind of similar to the muted gold color, and you're really not going to see it once you do start decorating this up. And you'll see the bells actually fit pretty snug on this, and I think the glue actually helps kind of mute that cardboard out a lot. But again, you're just going to start gluing bells. Like there's nothing really much else to this. You're going to glue a lot of Jingle bells and you're going to work your way all the way around. What I did was I used the larger size and I kind of worked up until I got to a point where the larger sizes could not complete a full circle. And I had to fill in with some smaller ones to kind of close the gap. And then once I did that, I started reversing it, or started switching it rather, and started going with the smaller size bells and then just literally working myself all the way, not working myself up, but working my way up the cone until I was completely covered at the tip with Jingle bells. And this is what it looks like when it's all done. I love this so much. This is a great addition to my Christmas decor. I'd actually like to do 3 or 4 of these in different sizes. I think that would be amazing to have a collection of Jingle Bell trees. We are going to use 2 of these wood squares that I picked up from Dollar Tree in the crafter square section. They have all these great new wood shapes that I'm really, really loving. I also grabbed 5 of these Jingle Bell ornaments. These are oversized. The glitter ones were the only ones that they had in my store. If you find solid colors, I would prefer you go with those. I also grabbed a package of these kind of like little sauce cups. Like I put my barbecue sauce in there for my chicken McNuggets. Now I'm going to go and take each one of these jingle bells, and we're going to get rid of the greenery that's on top here. And what we're going to do actually is put that greenery aside, because we are going to be using that for another project in this same video. So once you've kind of wrestled all of these off, you're going to just have the bells themselves. So you're going to go ahead and put those aside, and then we are going to start on the next part of this project. Now, this is the fun part where you get to get out a little bit of your holiday aggression, if you will. And you are going to take a pair of pliers or just a lightweight hammer, and you are going to flatten out each side of the bell, or at least the top and the bottom side of the bell. And the reason why you're going to do that is because you're going to be stacking these. And you could certainly use a hammer if you wanted to, but I'm using these pliers just because they're a little bit lighter weight, and I can have a little bit of a lighter hand with them. And again, all you're doing is just kind of pounding out on each side and just making sure that you have a flat surface to start stacking with. And now that you've got the flat surfaces, you can go ahead and start gluing these together. Now, I'm just going to be using some Surebonder all-purpose glue. These are going to be indoors. This is going to be perfectly fine for this project. If you wanted to use an E6000 or super glue, by all means, go for it. Any of these glues work out really, really well. I am just going to make 2 towers of bells. I'm going to have one tower that's going to be 3 bells, and then I'm going to have one tower that is just going to be 2 bells. Now, you could certainly build this up as high as you want. When you are doing this, though, you want to make sure that when you're gluing your bells down, that they're, nice and straight, or as straight as they can be. A lot of that's going to be dependent on how you banged your bells earlier. And, you're going to want to be, I guess, a little heavy or a little lighter handed with that. That's why, again, I was using the pliers for that. So once you've got your 2 stacks done, then it's time to bring in those chicken nugget dipper cups, as I like to call them. Now, for those chicken nugget dipper cups, you're going to just kind of repeat the same process, really, of just gluing these right on top. Now, you're not going to bang these. These are glass, by the way. And just so you know, when you do pick up the 4-pack initially, you're going to think that they're really, really heavy. They're actually not. These are very lightweight, and they're kind of perfect for on top of these bells, honestly. Let me adjust that camera so you can kind of see what I'm doing with the top ones there. And then I took them outside and I spray painted them, and I gave them a nice coat of my spray paint. And I'm using this mirrored reflection from Rust-Oleum. What is pretty unique about these particular bells is because they are glitter, they have that texture on them. And that is why I was saying earlier, if you can find your bells without any of that glitter texture, I would recommend going with that for sure. And when everything is dry, I just took it inside and added my battery operated candles, and it is done. I love the way that this looks. It is such a classic Christmas kind of DIY. It's so simple to make. I think I made this for, $7, and it looks like something high-end that you would find at like Home Goods. I'm obsessed. Now for this next project, this is really, really simple. I found this really cute fluted vase that I loved at Dollar Tree. I also grabbed a package of these ornaments. I'm going to just make this into more of a Christmassy vase, something that we can use kind of during the holidays. So I've got my vase now, and I'm going to take my Ace Hardware metallic mirrored finish paint. This is gold. This is kind of an antique gold, and I love this color. And what's great about this is you will do about 2 or 3 coats on this one, because the vase, if I would have spray painted the vase like black and then put this gold on top of it, it probably would have held better. But you'll see, it ends up being really, really nice. So once this is dry, I took it inside. I added the bow or the flower to the front of it just by clipping that down a little bit, removing that clip, and you've got a very, very easy DIY project that is so beautiful. And think about this. If you lined your dining room table or your fireplace with these, it would be absolutely beautiful for the holidays. Now for this next one, I'm pretty excited about this. I grabbed this sign at Target. This was in their dollar spot. I've seen very similar kind of palette style signs at Dollar Tree, so you could certainly use those as well. I'm also going to be using this ski lift ornament. I have this wood round from Crafty Square and then some of this faux snow. Now I have created something on my Cricut, but if you don't have a Cricut, you can use these types of letters. They come in red, they come in green, they come in white. I'm also going to be using my Dremel tool. You could certainly use a regular saw if you had one of those as well. Now for that sign, that arrow directional sign, I'm just going to go ahead and just make a straight line, or a somewhat straight line, using that bag. I couldn't find my ruler. And then I'm just going to take my Dremel here and I am just going to go across here. Now the Dremel, it has a lot of power and it definitely has some kickback to it. So be careful with that. Now for this part, this was kind of a little bit of an oopsie, a little bit of a learning curve here, I guess we'll say. I added a generous amount of hot glue, knowing that I would need that extra stability. However, the sign on the top was just way too heavy in order for this to stand up by itself. So I'm taking a nail and I can't find my hammer. So I'm just drilling kind of a pilot hole, and then I'm using my drill, and this is where things go a little wrong. So you can see that I end up breaking my sign. Now, I did kind of glue it together. I ended up using that nail actually, and then just kind of piecing the bottom of that broken piece there around the nail and using a ton of hot glue, and I let this sit for about 6 hours. Then I took it outside and spray painted it. Now, I was concerned that the spray paint and the heat with because we're still warm here in Georgia, would melt the hot glue. So after I spray painted everything down, I put the clip back on there because I'm going to be covering up that area anyway. Now, I mentioned that I did have a Cricut, and I am just kind of making some lettering really quickly on my Cricut. Again, if you don't have a Cricut, not an issue. If you can find some lettering from Dollar Tree, this will work out just fine. Now, I made ski slopes, hot chocolate, hot cocoa, and then I did tubing. I was afraid that the hot chocolate might be a little too long, so that's also why I did the hot cocoa. And you'll see that my guesstimates here were correct. So I'm just going to transfer these over to my sign now. So we have some directionals for our ski slope sign. We know where the ski slopes are. We know where the hot cocoa is, and we know where to go tubing. Tubing was something I absolutely loved as a kid. It was my favorite thing in the world to do. I almost lost the S there with the ski slopes, but that's okay. I was able to transfer it right back on. Now, for that little janky area there at the bottom that is kind of broken looking, we are going to cover all of that up. But before I do that, I had to show how cute this looks. I really love this. Now, for the bottom part, I am going to add just some gobs and gobs of hot glue because it kind of looks like icicles dripping down, especially when you add some of these snowflakes from the Dollar Tree. So just like glitter, I am going to start sprinkling this into all of that area where I've added the hot glue. And you will see that it, becomes quite the mess. But I am going to just kind of move that snow around everywhere there's a little bit of hot glue on the bottom of this. And you can see it's creating little icicles on my fingers, and that's okay because it actually does come off really, really easy. So I'm going to just continue to kind of build up the snow around the base of my sign. And for this next kind of glob of hot glue, I'm using the heat of the point of the hot glue, that I was going to say the needle, but that doesn't sound right. The you know what I'm talking about. You just saw me do it. And now for the sign itself, I also wanted to give that effect that you've got some icicles and some snow that are also dripping off the sign itself. So I am going to go through and just make sure that I've got some gobs of hot glue just kind of dripping down the sides. We've got it on all of the points, really anywhere that the snow would be hitting if this sign were out in the wilderness or out at the ski lodge and it was actually snowing. You know, we want to give this sign as real of an effect as possible. So kind of tilt it to one side if you need to, kind of get rid of all those random glue strings that are begging to be icicles, and just keep adding your snow until you've got the amount of snow that you want on your sign. I like snow. I don't like a lot of snow. So I kind of did like a middle grade here. Now, you may remember that really cute ornament that I picked up from Dollar Tree. We're actually going to take that burlap and we're going to cut that off of there because we're not going to need that. That would be where you would hang this on the tree. Instead, I'm going to take my skis and we are going to lean them up against the sign. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. And as you can see, this creates quite an impressive DIY. I love the way that this looks. It's got the directionals for the ski slopes and for the hot chocolate and the tubing, and it just makes me think about Christmas time and the holidays. I really, really like this one. All right, and for this next project, we're actually going to be using a leftover Thanksgiving sign. I think this was one of the football signs or maybe one of the turkey signs. I have these trees. I'm not actually going to end up using those trees. You're going to see I'm going to make a switch kind of towards the end here. And then I have these paper straws, these red and white striped paper straws. So the first thing I'm going to do is we are going to cut down all of our paper straws. We're going to cut them down to fit across the back of our sign. Now, you don't have to paint the back of your sign. The straws actually fit perfectly within my sign. So depending on what kind of sign you've got, you may or may not need to paint the back of your sign. I liked the wood with the red and white. You could certainly paint your sign white if you wanted to. As you can see, I am just kind of eyeballing this, literally eyeballing this. And then I'm taking my scissors and just kind of cutting this down. And then I'm going to use that as my guide to cut all of the other pieces down. Now, those little smaller pieces, do not throw those away. You're actually going to save them for another DIY that's in this video. So if you're making this, be sure and hang on to those pieces. Now, I've got to pry this one out of here because that's my template. And it, as you can see, it fit perfectly. And the way I'm doing this is not going to be exact. You're going to have to make some trims and some adjustments on them. But the most important thing is you want to keep all of those other smaller pieces. So once I've got everything cut down, I started gluing them on the back. And as you can see, I've been able to completely cover the back of my sign with those peppermint straws. Now, you may remember that originally I was going to use these bottle brush trees, and the idea was that I was just going to trim the backs of these to make them lay flatter up against those peppermint straws. However, the base is really too thick for that. So I'm going to instead use these stars. Now, remember your smaller pieces. Do not throw those away. These stars, by the way, are a 3-pack. They come in the Crafter Square section, and I thought that they were so great. They reminded me of like something very farmhousey, and I love that farmhouse kind of Christmas vibe, and I thought that this could be perfect for that. So I took the star. I'm going to glue it down just in the center. Remember, when you are using hot glue, especially with these metal pieces, that metal is going to get hot. So just, be a little careful. And you may remember these little pieces that we had left over from the Jingle bells. I'm going to go ahead and use one of these on this particular project. And all I'm going to do is just kind of trim away that hanger and get rid of this wire that's kind of in my way. And then I'm going to glue that down on the center. And when that is done, you've got the cutest DIY. I love the way that this turned out. I think that this is very, very cute. Very, very simple farmhouse, and I love the way this looks. All right, now you remember I told you to save all of those smaller pieces of the straws, and this is why. We're going to create a very cool farmhouse garland, like a peppermint garland. I'm going to be using those stars as well from Dollar Tree, and then you can use the wood beads from Dollar Tree, or you can paint your wood beads. I happen to have some red ones on hand, as well as some of the plain ones. And then for my twine, this is just Dollar Tree twine. I ended up grabbing about 12 feet of this because my fireplace is about 6 feet across, I think. And I want to have a double strand of my beads here. So I'm going to take some hot glue and I am going to just create a kind of a stiff point with my twine. And if you're going to do this, this actually helps with threading quite a bit. You could use an embroidery needle. You could use another kind of needle if you wanted to. But I was pretty happy with the way that this turned out. And this was a trick that I think I saw somebody doing a long time ago, and just kind of wanted to continue it. So I'm going to add my peppermint straw, and then I'm going to alternate my bead pattern. And I'm just going to do this in a pattern that I like. You could certainly mix this up. You can change it up as much as you want to. You could use different size beads. I think it would be really cute if you used even pom-poms or something. But essentially what we're doing here is creating a peppermint garland. Now, once you've got the peppermint garland, it is time to add your stars. So for the stars, you noticed that you probably noticed that they didn't have a hole in them. So instead, I'm going to take them and I'm going to just simply add some twine on the back of them and just loop them over the garland. And I'm just going to do this every so many feet. I think I counted out that I had 8 stars total, and I had 16 kind of sets of beads. So I was able to kind of finagle it to where everything was nice and balanced. So once everything is done, this is what it looks like. I loved this garland so much. It coordinates perfectly with the project before. And I also think what's great about this is that if you wanted to omit the stars and not use those, just the peppermint garland alone would be super, super cute on your fireplace, on a tiered tray, or even on your Christmas tree. Next DIY is going to incorporate these house shapes that I picked up from Dollar Tree. They're actually in the Crafter Square section. They're already cut. They're just kind of raw pieces of wood, and they are pretty cool. Now, what was really funny about all of these is that the tag came off so easy on the other 3, and I thought that it would come off easy on that one, and it didn't. Now, I'm going to take mine out just for the sake of time, and I'm going to use some spray paint. I'm just using this Rust-Oleum satin finish spray paint. I will say this isn't my favorite. I would probably go with like a flat matte or something instead. But, this ended up working out. It took a little bit longer time to dry. Of course, I'm spray painting a lot of times in the evening, though, because I do have a regular job during the day. And that could have been also part of the issue. Now, just when you thought you were done with your straws, you are not. These are the leftover straws from the couple of packages that I purchased when I did go to Dollar Tree. And I'm going to cut off a bunch of random sized pieces, and I'm eyeballing it. They're going to be about the same, but they're not going to be the same. And I'm doing that kind of on purpose. I want this to kind of have a little bit of a rustic look. Again, kind of, paying homage to that farmhousey kind of a look. And again, I want to have something that is going to be very, very cute and farmhousey. Now, if you don't have a Cricut like I do, then you could certainly freehand paint this. You do not want to see me freehand paint anything like this at all. So I created just very simple letters spelling out ho, ho, ho on my, or I guess it's ho, ho, on my, with my vinyl here. Again, you could use even the Dollar Tree vinyl for this and trace your letters and then cut them. I like to take my vinyl pieces and kind of fold them in half and then kind of flatten them out. You could also use the transfer tape if you wanted to. Either method works perfectly fine. With these larger pieces, sometimes it's a little easier just to hold them by hand. After I did this and transferred all of my letters onto all of my houses, then I had ho ho, as you can see here. I really thought that these were super, super cute, but I did want to personalize them and add a little peppermint touches to them. So that is where all of those little peppermint straws are coming into play. So I am going to add a very quick blob of glue. And then while it's still wet, I am rapid fire hanging or gluing all of those peppermint pieces to my roof lines and creating roofs. Now, you could do this obviously in smaller batches if you wanted to. If your glue happens to harden up, you can always use just the tip of your heat gun, and that will kind of reactivate and remelt that glue. And again, you can see that it's very staggered, and I'm kind of doing that on purpose. I don't want this to be very perfectly uniformed. I'm kind of doing this rustic vibe right now with Christmas items. And I really love the way that these are turning out. So again, just with this last one, I'm just going to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. And again, just making sure that I'm doing this as quickly as I can because that glue is going to harden. And then when it does harden, all I have to do is take that tip of my heat gun or my glue gun and again just reactivate that glue. That's what I'm doing right here, and I will add just a little bit more too, and then I will finish this up with my peppermint shingles. Now the houses look adorable just as is. However, I am going to add one other embellishment to these. Now, you may remember from our very first project, we took these green pieces off of the Jingle bells. Now, all I did was take those, I just kind of folded them in half. I added some hot glue on the back, and then I'm going to go in with these pine cones that were also part of it. And I'm just going to glue these at the front. And I'm going to do this at the points of each one of the houses. That way it gives a really cool effect to all of these. And when they're done, they are so, so cute. I absolutely love the way this little Christmas village looks. You could make this be anything that you wanted to say, really. I fell in love with these and think that they are just so adorable. Now, this last project, I have been hanging on to these metal cones for such a long time. Now, I have 2 star ornaments. I also have a set of string lights, 2 sets of string lights, and then these metal floral cones. I purchased these in the summertime. I have hung on to them. I recently found them at my store again and knew that I wanted to do something with them for Christmas. So I'm going to take that ornament pack that I picked up, and what we're going to do is kind of separate, of course, those from the package. And then I'm going to take my lineman pliers and I'm just going to clip the end of the star. Now, I will say at the tip of each one of the star, you see where the little hanging thing for the ornament would have been. That's probably where I should have clipped this, but I didn't. So I just made sure on the other star that I was consistent at least and have that hole kind of at the top of each one of those. So just forgive me with that one. So once I've got that kind of area clipped there, I'm just going to take my all-purpose hot glue from Shore Bonder and I am going to add a nice glob at the tip here. And for the tip, what we're going to be doing is making sure that this star sits upright on the end of these cones. Now, this first pass, I didn't quite clip it far enough, so I am going to take my lineman pliers and I'm just going to clip these right again. This is a very thin plastic, by the way, so you could probably even cut through these with your scissors. I don't think that there's any reason why you couldn't do that, honestly, because it is very, very thin again, and for the most part, it does kind of create a straight line when you do clip them. So now go ahead and take your Shore Bonder or your hot glue of choice. I'm again using Shore Bonder's all-purpose glue, and I am just going to add it at the tip here and slip there a little bit. Now, once I've got the star on there, I'm just going to kind of help hold it into place. I repeated that with both of them, and I took them outside. I'm spray painting these with a metallic gold. This is that same gold that I've used for some other projects earlier, that mirrored gold. Again, love the way that this coverage is. This is an Ace Hardware brand, and I'm super, super happy with this paint. I went ahead and just did 2 coats on the metal part, and then for the stars, I did end up doing 3. I took the lights inside, I wrapped them around there, and you've got the cutest little Christmas trees. They're very modern looking. What I loved about these two is that you could really mix this up. You could paint these any color that you wanted to. You could add a different type of ornament or star at the top. And again, really, really loved the way that these looked. This next project, we're going to use a Dollar Tree sheet pan and one of these trucks, and through the magic of YouTube, my truck is going to be spray painted red. Now, you will notice that I did take the back or the side rails of my truck off of the back. I think they're called side rails. It's the rails that are typically across the back of the pickup truck. Stay with me here because you'll see what I'm going to do with them next, or coming up anyway. The cookie sheet that I grabbed from Dollar Tree, I'm going to now use that to trace the fenders of my truck. And I'm just using my fingers for this. This is very, very thin baking sheets. So if you're going to cook with these, I would recommend that you double or triple these up, because I have thrown many cookies on the floor in the kitchen using these super thin baking sheets. However, they do work perfectly for DIYs, especially this DIY. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim out the fender for the back of the truck. And I'm just literally following those crease lines that I created with my fingers and using just regular scissors for this. Now, you can obviously use a metal tin or something like that. You don't have to, because these sheets are thin. Now, this will be a little sharp, so you will want to, of course, be careful when you're cutting this. But go ahead and just trim out the fender for the front and for the back. You're going to repeat this process for both of your truck fenders. And by the way, doesn't my wheel look a little wonky on the front? I just noticed how kind of oblong that front wheel is, but I guess that's my fault for picking a wonky truck. But that's okay, because this truck is actually going to be for the bad boys and the bad girls of Christmas. Now, you will understand what I'm getting at in just a minute here. So after you've got all of your fenders trimmed, go ahead and just glue those down. I'm using just regular hot glue for this, and we are going to move on to our next part of the project. Now, for the area where the door handle would be and that kind of trim piece, I guess, of the truck, I'm going to cover that up with a piece of my cookie sheet as well. So I'm just going to cut down a square that's about the same size to cover up the door handle as well as that area, and then I just tape it down. Now, for our paint, I am using Waverly's ink chalk paint, and I am going over the tires to make my tires black. And when I'm doing this, I'm not really worried about whether I'm getting any of that black paint on the red hubcaps. In fact, you will see shortly that not only am I worrying about that, but I'm also going to take some of that same black chalk paint, and we are going to be painting down the fenders of our truck just a little bit, because we want this truck to look dirty. We want this truck to look like it has been in the coal mines, for example. And we are just going to dirty up those fenders, and then you can use any kind of a towel, paper towel, anything to kind of wipe off some excess, and it's going to give your fenders kind of a rubbed out or worn out look. So it's not so bright and shiny like our cookie sheet originally was. Now for the rails on the back of the truck. Now I did take those off before I spray painted everything red, and I'm going to be using some good old antiquing wax on this. And this is just Waverly's antiquing wax. I use just a little bit on a brush and then cover it and then wipe it away to give it that really cool kind of aged look. Now I glued the rail or the fencing or whatever that is in the bed of the truck up a little bit higher than what it was originally set at, because I want the truck to look like it is filled with something. And we are going to be filling the back of the truck with something very, very soon. Before I do that, though, I am taking any of the residual kind of black paint from the truck that dried on the brush, and I am just going back through and just kind of aging my metal again. I'm kind of getting in the creases of the truck, like where the handle was and everything, getting some darkness around the wheel well, and just kind of really making this look like this truck is dirty. It's still a Christmas truck, so it's not going to really be like technically dirty, but I think you understand what I'm going for here. Now on the back, we're needing something to fill our truck with. So I am taking these Jingle block pieces. They don't have to match. It doesn't matter what color they are. Just grab 2 Jingle pieces and kind of separate them like this and glue them on the back just below the railing that is on the side of your truck. Now you understand maybe, or maybe you're gonna understand soon why I did that. Now I am taking some beads and I am going to thread these onto a skewer, and I am going to use that second baking sheet that came with that 2-pack from Dollar Tree, and I am just going to tape it down across my pan. The skewer is the perfect size, and taping this down is going to enable me to paint my beads really quickly. The beads are going to roll around a little bit, but you can definitely do this. And then I'm going to take my heat gun and dry those beads and get those ready for the back of the truck. Any ideas what those beads are supposed to represent yet? All right, now after I have all of my beads painted and dried, I'm now taking sheets of burlap and I'm cutting them into squares. And I'm going to wrap each one of my beads into its own little burlap bag here. And I'm going to tie this off with my twine. Now the poof at the top of my burlap square, it's a little large. So I'm going to trim these down to make them look like little tiny bags of coal. And I love the way that this looks. I just wrapped all of the beads that I painted into these burlap squares. I tied it off with the twine. I cut away any of the excess. Now I'm also going to use two very large Jingle pieces that I had picked up at like a yard sale. Somebody had wrote some stuff on them from a family event. Doesn't matter to me because I am strictly using those to prop my truck up and to stand my truck upright. Now, I am going to take some Dollar Tree letters. This is not vinyl. It is Dollar Tree letters. I am using my Cricut tool so to help me poke out some of those little sticker pieces that don't come out. Now, if you do have a Cricut and you want to create this using your Cricut, by all means do that. Don't do what I just did and tear up your bee though, because that is not any fun. Now, once I have all of my letters spelled out, I am spelling Bad List Company. This is the Bad List Trucking Company, delivering bags of coal to bad boys and girls all around the world. Now, I am going to take my antiquing wax after I've made sure that all of my stickers are placed on top of that popsicle stick really, really, really well. And we are going to apply a light coat of the antiquing wax. We're going to dry it just a little bit with our heat gun. And then we are going to remove all of those letters. When you're removing those letters, it almost gives it this look of like a scorch pen, like a reverse scorch pen. I have a scorch pen somewhere. I wanted to use my scorch pen originally for this idea and could not find it. I am in bad need of getting some organization done in my craft room, but I did find my Dollar Tree letters, and I know that these are pretty common. People can usually find these pretty easily, but when it's all done, it is going to say Bad List Company or Bad List Trucking Company. And I did go ahead and also just kind of square off the ends of my popsicle stick. That way I had a nice squared off sign. I'm going to apply this to the side of my truck, and we are going to have the Bad List Trucking Company ready to start delivering coal. Although first we have to load our truck with the coal. So to load our truck up, all I'm going to be doing is gluing those little coal satchels or coal bags down to the Jingle blocks that we glued onto the back of our truck. And now you can kind of see why I did the railings the way I did, because if you look at the truck, it looks like it is filled with bags of coal that is going out to all of the naughty boys and girls out there in the world. I was going to originally call it the Naughty Trucking Company, but I thought that might be bad. So I went with the Bad List Company. I love the way that this turns out. I think it's super cute. I think it's very whimsical. I added a bow where that other hole was for hanging. You could certainly fill that in with wood filler if you wanted to, but I'm so happy with this one. And now for my last project, I'm going to take this garland that I picked up from Walmart. I love this bling. I also grabbed a package of these ornaments at Big Lots. I bought these like long before Dollar Tree had any of their ornaments out yet. I also have these disco ball ornaments that are pretty durable. I just dropped them. And then I found these smaller disco balls at Dollar Tree, and I thought that it would be fun to create a disco-tastic garland. So what we're going to do is take our garland out. This is 18 feet of garland, by the way. I did cut this in half because I did not need 18 feet of disco balls. I'm going to actually use this on the fireplace. I'll eventually put it on the tree. I know I've made a lot of garland this season, and I'm really thinking about just decorating my Christmas tree with different types of garland this year. I think that would be hilarious, and I think it would also be very, very cool because I've done so many different types of garland this year. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with the larger disco ball ornaments first. We are going to take those and we are going to start applying those to the 9 feet of garland. And what I did was I started at the very beginning with one large ball and then started at the very end with the other one and then worked my way in with the other 6 larger disco ball ornaments. Then after that was done, I went in and put a glitter ornament every other spacing kind of in between the disco balls. Then I went in with these smaller disco ball ornaments and simply tied those on to the garland itself. Now I'm using a silver ribbon that I'm not sure if you saw at the very, very beginning to tie everything on with. And the small disco ball ornaments from Dollar Tree came with their own kind of twine that was already kind of built into the ornament itself. So I just sliced that and then just tied that onto the ornaments or to the garland strand itself. So hopefully that's making sense. The great thing about this is that there's really no wrong way to do this because you are customizing this and creating this to be your garland. You could evenly space it. You could just have fun. It's the disco days. Just have fun with it. And when you are all done, you are going to have the blingiest disco ball garland that you have ever seen. I love this so, so much. When I took this picture, the sparkles jumped out of it, probably because of my lighting here at home. But also, look how cute and reflective this is. I am sold. I love this. I think I'm going to pull it out for parties. Even for New Year's Eve, you could use this. So many fun ways to use this garland. And for my next project here, we're going to be taking 2 ornaments that I picked up when I was shopping at Hobby Lobby. I absolutely fell in love with these ornaments, and you can use really any kind of sparkly, pretty structural ornament that you want for this particular project. Now this one, I loved how it had that hanging dangly piece, and then I just loved the size of this one. We're also going to be using a dowel rod and 2 of these wooden blocks from Crafter Square Dollar Tree. We're going to remove these stickers and we are going to drill some holes. Now, for one of my blocks, I'm going to make that hole deep enough that that wooden dowel rod can go all the way down. And for the second block, we're just going to barely add a hole in that one. And the reason why we're doing that is because one of these ornaments is going to freely stand on top of that block, and the other ornament is going to be kind of suspended from that dowel rod. So once you've got all that situated, then you are going to add your hot glue and you are going to make sure that your dowel rod is in there nice and straight. And then of course, for that second one that we're doing, just kind of that really minimal hole, it is just to help allow that one ornament to stand on top of this one. So once you got those all ready to go, it's time to take them outside and to start spray painting them. Now, I also did decide to go ahead and trim down this dowel rod. I thought that one was just going to be way too tall in comparison to the other one. And I wanted them to kind of sit side by side, almost like a little Christmas knick-knack, if you will, that you would set out on a tray. Now, I took my blocks outside and I had a mirrored gold spray paint in mind, but I actually didn't have a lot of the mirrored gold spray paint left. I did, however, have a lot of the antique gold spray paint. So I sprayed both blocks with the antique gold spray paint. Then I went over them and I spray painted them both with the mirrored gold after the antique gold had dried. And that enabled me to have a nice gold base on the wood blocks and then to spray paint that mirrored spray paint on top of it. And I really, really love the way that these turned out. Now that everything is dry, I'm going to go ahead and take these inside and assemble them. Now, my star ornament is not going to freely stand by itself because of these little threads here. So I'm just going to kind of cut off little, they're not threads, those little knobs on the ornament. And we're just going to kind of trim this down a little bit. That way it stands more freely inside of this block. And then I did add a little bit of hot glue, of course, because we want to help reinforce it and keep it nice and sturdy. And then I did hold that in place until it dried. And then for this other one, I wanted this to really look like it was standing on top of that dowel rod. So I am going to add just a little tiny bit of glue on the end of this. And this is the wood glue, by the way, from Shore Bonder. And it holds really, really well. I was super impressed with this. I just kind of held that in place and just made sure it was good and sturdy before finalizing them. And I love the way they look. Again, I think that they're so classic. They're going to be perfect accents to a tiered tray, to my mantle, to my living room. You could even put these in the bathroom if you wanted to. So many great uses. All right, and for the next project, I grabbed this bag of assorted wood pieces from Hobby Lobby, and I really liked these triangular shapes that were in here. And I decided to grab all three of them that were in here, and we're going to make little mini Christmas trees with them. Now, I thought that I should also pair these up with a stand of some kind, so I'm going to be using 2 of these mini Dollar Tree blocks. For the actual triangle itself, I did go ahead and drill a little kind of a hole, if you will, into the bottom of one of those triangles just to be able to get it to kind of stack on top of each other like you see there. Now I'm simply going to add a wood block on the bottom of each one of my trees. I've got my double tree there, and then I've got the single tree. Again, just adding a little bit of my Shore Bonder wood glue here and just connecting those two together. Now, once I had my 2 trees ready to go and the glue was dry, I took them outside and I spray painted them. I did spray paint these with this dark hunter green spray paint that I really, really liked. I kind of hit the tops of them. I let them dry. I flipped them over and then I spray painted the other parts of them. You could certainly use chalk paint for these. I also grabbed these little ornaments from the jewelry section, these little Christmas bows. I thought they were super adorable, and Hobby Lobby is having a great sale, so why not? I did kind of clip the O-ring off of each one of those bows because we're going to be using these as our tree toppers. And for these, of course, I knocked one tree over because I'm like Bigfoot over here with these little tiny trees. But I'm going to go ahead and just add some glue right to the top and just glue that bow directly down on top of my little tree. I repeated this with the other tree as well, and I think you will agree that these are really kind of adorable. And something like this, I love a knickknack. I'm telling you, I love a knickknack. You can set these up anywhere in your house. They are the cutest little things, and you could have so much fun creating your own little tree village with a bunch of these different shapes. And now for my next project, I'm going to be making an ornament that's going to honor my pet, Mr. Otis. I'm going to take one of these terrariums, 2 of these Christmas trees from the Christmas villages that you can pick up at Dollar Tree, a wood block, and then I also found this package of dog and cats in the toy section. Of course, I only need 1 cat because I have Mr. Otis, and I'm going to go through this package of pets, and I'm going to find the one that I think represents Mr. Otis, or at least kind of looks like a Mr. Otis. He definitely will need a little bit of a paint job, but I think this guy is going to be perfect for it. So first thing I want to do is actually, believe it or not, I'm going to have to trim down the trees because I did want 2 trees in there. However, this one is a little tall. Now, I thought I could cut through it with regular scissors. That did not work. So I brought out my lineman pliers and just trimmed off that tip. But you will save that tip because I'm going to show you what we're going to do now. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and just trim down our tree a little bit more just to make it kind of, similar shape to the other one. This will still be the taller tree that's going to be inside of your terrarium versus the height of the smaller tree. But, we have to shape it up a little bit because we chop the top of it off, and we want to just go ahead and trim this down. I'm just using a regular pair of scissors here, and you can easily cut through these wires with just any kind of scissors, really. Now that tip that I told you about, you're just going to take that tip and you're going to glue it right back on top of that tree that you started to trim down, and you are going to have another little tree. Now, when you put them side by side, you can see that you've got the one that's taller. I think I told you guys the one I trimmed was going to be taller, but clearly that wasn't the case. Now, I took an automotive chamois and just cut a circle into it. And I'm going to add some hot glue right on top of that chamois. And I'm going to add a nice little puddle here of hot glue because I am going to kind of use this as a snow mat for the inside of that terrarium. Now, I have this bag of snow mix that I've been using a couple different DIYs with. And I'm treating it just kind of like glitter. I'm literally putting it right on top of that glue glob, and then I'm just going to kind of pounce it down, tap it in until the actual snow starts to stick to the glittery parts. And then when that is all done, you're going to have something that looks like this. I'm going to go ahead and take some hot glue, and I'm just going to put it in the bottom of my terrarium there. And we are going to set the snowy ground inside of the terrarium, kind of like so. And then again, just kind of patting that down until it starts to stick. Once that is stuck, I'm going to then seal this bag up. This is a little trick that I do. I always take some hot glue, I put it right on the inside of the bag, I glue the ends of that together and fold it over. That way that snow does not get all over my work surface. Now, for my tree that I trimmed down, I am going to add some more snow. This is just with a dry brush, a little bit of chalk paint on my brush, just going over the bristles like you see me doing right here. And then I did end up adding a little bit more snow on the other tree as well, just to make sure that everything was nice and snowy covered. We don't get a whole lot of snow where I live here in Atlanta, Georgia, but we do get ice. And that's certainly not fun. But I love snow. I would love to get more snow. Now, for my cat, I have to paint him very similar color to Mr. Otis. Now, I'm not an artist by any means. This is not going to be an actual, representation, or this is not going to be a duplicate of Mr. Otis. This is going to be an artistic version of Otis. And again, I'm just using some acrylic paint here. Now, for that wood block, while the first layer of Mr. Otis is drying, I'm actually just painting that red because I am going to put a little bow on top of this. And this is going to be a little present inside of our ornament scene that we are doing with that terrarium. So painting the block just on all sides of it, getting red paint all over me. I'm using a red chalk paint from Waverly. I think it's called Crimson. And now I'm just, again, kind of working on Otis 2.0, adding in some white there because my kitty cat, as you guys know, if you followed me for a while, is orange and white. And I am just kind of layering on the paint, honestly, until I feel like I've got it pretty close to what my little buddy looks like. And again, he has some white spots. He has the white spots around his face, around his ears, around his tail. And again, I'm not an artist. I'm not a Picasso here, but I am giving a tribute, if you will, to Mr. Otis. And that is going to be a pretty good representation. Now that little package has already dried, so I'm just taking a piece of my ribbon that I have here, and I'm just going to tie a very simple bow, and then I'm going to glue this right on top of the red block and turn it into a little present. Don't tell Otis that it's just a wood block because I think he's going to think that it's a real present there. And again, just letting that glue set up and then just gluing that bow right on top. Then we're going to start assembling our ornament. And I am just taking some hot glue. I'm adding some hot glue onto one of my trees. I did grab the taller tree first. I went ahead and just worked that inside of my terrarium, and I wanted it to be a little farther back than it ended up, but I'm going to make it work. So now for the second tree, this is actually the tree that I did end up trimming down. So it's a little shorter than the other one was. Again, adding the glue in there. And then I'm just going to kind of strategically squish that in next to the other one and just kind of shift a few things around, if you will. And then once everything has been shifted around and the tree placement is set, I'm then going to go ahead and place my present. And when I place the present down inside of that, I'm going to nestle it on one side of the tree. Because this is a terrarium that we're turning into an ornament, you're going to see things in it from multiple sides, depending on how it's hanging. We're going to place everything all set. Otis is ready to go. And how cute is this? All you have to do is take a piece of ribbon, tie a little bow at the top, and then use that same piece of ribbon to also hang it from your Christmas tree. And you've got the cutest little tribute ornament to your favorite furry friend, my loved one, my Mr. Otis that I love so much. He is literally sitting on my lap while I'm doing this voiceover right now, and I'm really, really, really happy with this ornament. If you know me, you know I love a garland. I love putting garland on my fireplace, especially during the holidays. And I wanted to create a garland that was definitely very farmhouse inspired. And I found these great ornaments from Hobby Lobby that inspired it, as well as these bells that had this really cool kind of rusty look to them. I thought that they were awesome. I had this twine that I picked up on Amazon, and then of course those beads that you saw at the very beginning that were also, I believe, either from Amazon or from Hobby Lobby. Now, for the actual placement of everything, I'm just going to kind of eyeball and just kind of lay out what I think my design is going to look like. And you'll see that it does end up changing a little bit from this, which is always a good thing in my opinion. I really liked the way that the beads were going to kind of be clustered together, but I wanted this to feel very kind of loose and very farmhousey and very free. So I started kind of playing around with the placement of everything. And then as I'm stringing either beads on or bells on, I am then tying a knot and making sure that everything kind of is staying in place, kind of like so, creating some really cool spacing between where my beads are and where my bells are. And then once I've got that strand all set up, then it was time for me to go through with my ornaments, these galvanized metal snowflake ornaments, which I loved really so much. I wanted to go ahead and tie these and make them kind of a focal point by tying them right in the middle of where those two white beads are. And I really, really was happy with the way that this turned out. After I completed all 8 or 9 sections of my white beads, I had this gorgeous, very like farmhousey inspired garland that I loved so much. I think that this is gorgeous. I love the way this looks, especially against the white brick. I may actually just keep this on my fireplace and not put it on my tree, or I may end up going in like making a double strand of this or something, because I really, really love the way that this looks. I was inspired by, get it? As soon as I saw the sign, actually, and I've had that Inspire sign for quite some time. Now, I grabbed 2 of these wood planks from Crafter Square, and then I needed 2 sticks. So I'm going to be using the sticks from these gnome yard ornaments, and you'll see I'm going to break one of the sticks here in just a second. But we are going to save those gnomes and use those for another project. Now, as I was prying these off, I was a little aggressive with it. I probably should have started at the top, and I ended up breaking this one stick, but no worries at all. I'm going to take my Dremel tool, and I'm just going to straighten out that one stick. That way I have a nice flat surface to connect my other stick too, because we are going to create something for the yard. Now, I'm going to take my Inspire sign and I'm going to glue that down. And then the idea here is that I will have these other wood planks on either side of the Inspire sign. Now, I'm curious if you've figured out yet what I'm going to be making. Now, the holes that are in the wood planks are totally fine because I'm going to actually embellish those and cover those up. Now, you could use wood filler if you wanted to. You could even trim these down and not use that part that has the holes. I don't think that that's necessary. So either way, whichever way works best for you is totally up to you, and that's totally your call. The twine, I will just go ahead and trim that off, and I'll set that to the side. I may use that for another project, but you're not going to need it for this. Now, once you've got everything glued together, this is what it is going to look like before we take it outside and spray paint it. Any ideas yet of what this is going to be? Now, I'm going to go ahead and just cover everything in white matte spray paint from Rust-Oleum. And again, this spray paint is one that I really like working with. This is a 2 times the coverage. It does cover really, really well. I did end up using two coats of my spray paint to make sure that that Inspire sign was not only covered, but also just to give everything a really even, beautiful coat, because I did want to start with a completely white canvas. And again, I love working with this spray paint. Now, for my sign, I am using my cutting machine. However, if you don't have a cutting machine, you can very easily do this with paint markers. You could do this with freehand painting. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of recreate this. So for my lettering, I made a letter or a set of letters that says Santa, or that spells out Santa. And then the other portion is the word here. And then you can see where I took the stop sign. Now, for the ends of my sticks where I do have those holes, I thought initially I could probably use some of these floral picks to kind of cover that up, but I wasn't really happy with the way that that looked, so I took the floral picks apart. And I am going to now just start gluing some of these random pieces just to the ends there on where the holes are. Now, one thing I did do was alternate the holes. So on the lower part of my sign, the part that says here, that the holes are on the opposite side. That way I would have some embellishment kind of on each side of the sign as it's working its way down. Now, again, I'm just literally taking apart some floral picks. I'm adding in some pieces. I'm going to add in some berries to bring in some of those red colors. And then I'm going to recreate this and kind of do the exact part or this similar kind of concept down at the other end of the sign on the part that says here. And when that's all done, this is what it's going to look like. I decided then, since my stop sign was a little bit smaller than I liked, I was going to light up my sign. That way Santa was sure to see my sign for him to stop here and deliver his Christmas presents. I took these peppermint light strings from Dollar Tree, and then I'm going to simply just glue that onto the back of my stop sign. Once that glue is set, I just took those string lights and wrapped it around the stop sign. And again, love the way that this turned out. I think that this is super, super adorable. If you wanted to keep this outside and stake this into the ground, I think you could. I would just spray it down with a clear coat, and then I would probably look at some indoor, outdoor lighting options. Those battery packed lights from Dollar Tree, I think that they're all really for indoor use. So this could even be really cute, I think, standing up next to a fireplace by your Christmas tree. I think that there's a lot of really fun options for this one, and I really do love the way that this turned out. DIY I am obsessed with. This is a plastic candy jar that you can pick up from Dollar Tree or Family Dollar. I've seen these at Dollar Tree before just recently, so definitely be on the lookout. If you can't find them at Dollar Tree, then definitely go to Family Dollar. They have them in 3 different colors. I'm going to take mine, and after I remove the tag, I'm going to pop a hole in the side of mine on the back side, just using my heat tool there. Now, a heat tool is great to have in your crafting arsenal. However, a heat tool or wood burning tool can be extremely hot. So as soon as I'm done with mine, I put it away. I have like a little plate that's kind of sitting off of my workstation that I unplug and put it on. That way it can sit, it can cool, because you don't want to burn yourself. Now, grab one of these little light string sets and make sure it works. Put some batteries in it, of course, and then put the lid back on your candy jar. And then you're going to feed your string lights down through that hole in the back, and you're going to add them all. Look how cute this is. This is so adorable. I love this so, so much. Now, this next DIY is also going to be extremely easy. They have these great frames at Dollar Tree that are kind of galvanized metal, and then they have these clips that are built in. And you're going to take also a wooden snowflake ornament from Dollar Tree and a ribbon of your own kind of choosing, any kind of bow, and you're going to paint your snowflake. Now, I'm using a Waverly chalk paint for this one. You can paint this any color you want. I just loved this kind of ivory color from Waverly. I loved the coverage on it. I also loved the fact that it's going to kind of be this kind of off-white, which kind of lends to the kind of farmhouse, I guess, chicness of this and the frame and everything. If you wanted to make this really, really pop, you could definitely do a darker color ornament. You know me in navy blue. I literally almost did a navy blue snowflake, but believe it or not, I did not have a ribbon that I thought would coordinate well enough with this. So I decided not to go ahead and do that and go with the white. And besides, how many blue snowflakes do you see anyway? So we're going to keep painting this. And this one, I just made sure I got on the edges and the sides and everything, because you do want to make sure you have really good coverage, obviously. And again, I just did one coat on this. I would say I probably did a pretty heavy coat. And that's the beauty of working with chalk paint, especially the Waverly products, which I do really, really love. It just makes it super, super easy to, just to kind of have fun and paint and decorate it up. Now, take your heat gun if you're impatient like I am, let it dry, and then clip your snowflake into your frame just like this. The snowflakes are a perfect fit. These snowflakes come in a package from Dollar Tree. I want to say there's like 5 or 6 of them or 8 of them. It seems like they change the amount every year, and it gets lower and lower every year. Hello, Dollar Tree. We are noticing you. And then for that little bow that I've got there, you can just add this however you want. For me, I wanted to add my bow to the actual kind of clip. And as you can see, this is fantastic. This would be so great on a side table, on a nightstand. I love the way that these turned out. Now, this next DIY could not be easier. These great fluffy ornaments from Dollar Tree that look like wreaths. They also kind of look like dog toys to me with the, because the wreath, I don't know. But take your candles of choice, mine are red, and go ahead and remove that plastic that's kind of on the, I guess it's the label. And they will actually remove pretty easily once you find where it starts. And then it leaves very, very little residual like glue. Just wipe it off with a cloth and some cleanser. That's all I did. Now, for your ornaments, you're going to take these and you're just going to trim these down because you're going to remove the hanger that's on there. That's all I'm kind of doing here. And then for the embellishments, you're just going to kind of squish them off to one side. You're not going to remove them though. And then you're just going to drop them down over top of your candle holders like so. How easy is this? And this DIY is done. You've got some really cute candle holders for the holidays. Now, Dollar Tree is selling these little tiny frames. They come in silver, they come in gold, they come in copper, and I really like these. And what I like about them is that they have a glass insert. That's what you're going to be looking for. Grab some of your favorite stickers. My stickers happen to have come from Hobby Lobby, but again, you can get stickers from anywhere, including Dollar Tree. Now, you're going to go ahead and remove all of the kind of innards of the frame and the little tabs that are on the frame as well. I used pliers for the first one, and then I ended up being able to remove them by hand for the second one. So if you don't have a pair of pliers, whatever, don't worry about it. You could literally pull these out with your fingers. Now the glass is pushed aside. I am going to go ahead and just add some glue right on the inside edge of the frame. And and I'm not adding a whole lot. I'm actually kind of going very, very liberally with the glue, which if you know me, you know that that's not very odd. That's not very unique, I guess, because I like glue. I use a lot of glue. So you're going to add your frame back in there, your glass back into the frame, and then you're going to embellish with whatever your favorite stickers are. Now, I am going to use this set of stickers first because I love these kind of vintagey trees, and I think that this would be super, super cute. Now, once you've got your frame all set up, then you're going to add your ribbon. I have that white faux leather ribbon. I've had it forever and I've been trying to figure out something to do with it. And this was perfect because it's got that silky, shiny, kind of beautiful leather look on these little frames, and it really, really elevates the way that these looks. Now, I just added some glue to the back of my frame and just very simply made these. I made 2 of them, and when you see them on the tree, how adorable are these? Especially with the light coming through from the Christmas tree in the background, I am obsessed. Now, if you know me, you know I love nutcrackers, and I found these unfinished wood nutcrackers. I found one at Family Dollar, one was at Dollar Plus, or Dollar Tree in the Plus section, and they were both $3 each, and I thought they were perfection. Now, I took mine outside and I spray painted them with my Rust-Oleum 2 times the coverage black matte spray paint, which I love so much. I made some smaller versions of these last year and really loved the way that they turned out. And as you can see, this is the easiest DIY. They look so chic, so high-end. I really love them. Right, this next DIY is going to be also super, super easy. I have these Christmas trees that are kind of 3D trees, and I picked these up. These either came from Dollar General or from Family Dollar, and I've had these for, I got them last year, and I used a couple of them last year as well in some different DIYs, and for this year I thought, you know what, I want to keep it very, very simple and just very, very classic. So I'm going to take these trees and kind of put them together. This one is giving me a hard time. And for the third one here, we're going to put this one together. It fights a little bit at the beginning, but as you can see, they do all come together. And now I've got 3 trees to take outside and spray paint. I'm using my Rust-Oleum metallic spray paint. Keeping this very, very simple, just spray painting these trees, making sure that I've got good coverage on all sides, making sure that, it's going to look adorable. And speaking of adorable, how cute are these? I love the way that these turned out.